Happy Thursday and welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple with you every week here as we break down the stories around Husker Nation. And if you're not a member of Husker Online, check us out right now. We got a great deal promo going on right now. You'll get 2 months of access for just $1. Simply use promo code NU1 to get 2 months for $1. That's the best deal you're going to get. And as we kick it off here on headlines this week, Steve Sipple, headline number one. And, you know, as the week went on, we didn't get to see the scrimmage, but we've continued to hear more and more things about the scrimmage last week. Matt Rule feels the defense fell short in the first scrimmage.
Yeah, isn't it? First of all, I just want to say, as I call this story up, we are just blessed in this with this staff, I guess, or just
They're open.
There's so much to write about, and I wish that spring ball lasted 2+ months. You know, I do, because we got so much. There's so much going on. There's so much to talk about. Always, it's interesting. It's year two. You know, I think it's a pretty good team. The defense last year was ranked 11th nationally in terms of yards allowed per game, 7th nationally in terms of yards allowed per play. They have a lot of good players back. We'll talk about that. But no, in the scrimmage Saturday, see an example of something that's interesting. Rule got on Tony White and said after the scrimmage, this isn't good enough.
And then it bled over to Tuesday.
Well, the kids really responded well, according to Tony White, but the standard's pretty high now. I mean, we said the stats. And Rule's looking for them to take a step up. And you know, I'd be concerned if I was the leader of that program that the defense would sort of rest on its laurels a little bit because they hear so much praise.
There's 5 reasons I'm not really concerned about that scrimmage, though. I'll give them to you.
Okay.
Nash Hutmacher,
right?
Ty Robinson, Tommy Hill, Isaac Gifford, Marquise Buford.
Yeah.
None of those guys played the scrimmage.
Yeah.
So you take out.
That's a good point.
I mean, it'd be like me covering a Husker game day without you and Robin and everyone and just putting a bunch of younger people in to work with me. It wouldn't be the same. And it's the same thing with that defense. I mean, you've got 5 veterans, and there were 8 total that they rested in that scrimmage. But the core of that defense, the frontline proven names that have started and played a lot of football, didn't play. So I think it's a great motivational ploy to get guys fired up, but I'm not concerned when that defense is missing those 5 guys. I mean, you can't really freak out.
I hear you. The word ploy is, I maybe would take issue with a little bit because that makes it sound like it's insincere, right?
What are you doing?
I'm looking at the story, and texts are rolling in right now. I'm looking at the story. What
You're just like texting your mom or something?
I'm looking at the story on my phone. Tony White wants the guys to play with no hesitation, no fear. He said that's the next step for the defense. Make sure every guy believes they are monsters, that they can go out and play fast and physical, and that they'll correct stuff later. So God dang, the one thing, Sean, I just wish we could see him. I wish we could see the scrimmage. I just would, and I'm not complaining. You know, I know that the staff listens to these. I'm not complaining. It's not that. I just would love to see.
We've learned a lot of the staff listens to these things.
Yeah. I would love to see it. It's very interesting to me. I mean, I'd like to see what Jamari Butler looks like this year. I'd like to see what Javin Wright looks like this year. I'd like to see, we're going to talk about Blye Hill. What do those corners look like? You know,
mainly just so you can paint a clear picture versus like
trying to imagine what it's looking like. That's what we're doing, right?
The thing is, like, no matter what you write, you're always going to tend to be positive. Like, I don't think, I don't think you're ever going to get access to a scrimmage and write negatively.
Well, I don't know about
in the spring.
I mean, if the defense allows a series of big runs and drops interception chances, it'd be negative. It's not that. It's just I don't even think of it that way. I just think of it as I just like to get a good handle on what we're writing about, because when we write about this stuff, it's really challenging because we're writing about something we're not seeing.
And then we have to end up calling a lot of people that we know have been able to see practice. And
Yeah.
you
Then even then it's dangerous.
I mean, yeah, because sometimes those people don't see the right things.
Right. And you know how it is watching a practice. Two people can watch something and see it way differently, which is just like a crime. You know, you see that in crime, where two people can watch a scene of something happen in a criminal sense and then come away with the two different stories.
See, when I watch like a scrimmage, I chart every play. Like I keep, if it's a move the ball scrimmage, you know, I write like first dash 10, 35-yard line, and then 7-yard run. You know, then I go back and I put all that together because you almost have, I mean, to get a real clear picture. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's over 100 plays run.
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have to note a lot of things.
Well, think of Sean, just think of how the coaches do it. They watch it, but then they go watch the film because they miss stuff.
Angles.
Yeah, because they miss stuff. I was always struck by Milt Tenneper, R.I.P., the former Nebraska offensive line coach, who I would watch a game, and my thing, you know, I'm very offensive line oriented, and I'd go down, I'd rush down to talk to him after the game, and he'd be like, Seb, I got to be careful here. I don't want to say too much because I haven't seen the film. I mean, that's
real.
Yeah, that's real. And that's kind of so take that challenge times 3 or 4 when we're trying to write about a scrimmage we don't see even, you know. But anyway, so Tony White gives us valuable information today in saying, no, it probably wasn't what we wanted, you know. So that's good. It's good it doesn't have to be right now what they want.
All right, before we take it to headline number 2, HuskerOnline Headlines is brought to you by Ellerbrock-Norris. Ellerbrock-Norris has been helping Nebraska business owners protect their purpose for over 120 years. With risk management solutions built for local businesses, Ellerbrock-Norris partners with you on commercial insurance, group benefits, business exit planning, safety, and more. Start thinking long-term with your business and create a risk management strategy to protect it. Are your employee benefit costs going through the roof? Talk to Ellerbrock. Workplace injuries skyrocketing with your workers' compensations costs? Talk to Ellerbrock. Hoping to retire in the next 10 years and sell the business to family, key employees, or even a friendly competitor? Talk to Ellerbrock. Ellerbrock-Norris is helping you protect your purpose, whether it's your business and the employees in it, or your life outside work, or your future retirement goals. Head to ellerbrock-norris.com/HuskerOnline today to get your free risk evaluation. That's ellerbrock-norris.com/HuskerOnline. Thanks again to Ellerbrock-Norris for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online show. Okay, headline number 2, keep an eye on Blye Hill. And you know, we had a friendly debate about him in the winter, pre-spring, and I was hesitant to put him up there just because of what they returned. And
yeah, it's fine.
And I think he's really shown some flashes in the last few weeks. He's definitely the biggest corner they have on this team right now at 6'3". He's the son of a former NFL linebacker that played 10 years for the Carolina. Now I'm blanking on his dad's name.
That's okay.
But he was a Carolina Panther, Clemson Tiger, ACC Player of the Year.
Okay.
I'll get his name.
You might as well type that in. Just make it quick. Make it snappy.
You talk while I look here.
Okay, here's the deal. White mentioned a handful of players who stood out.
Leroy Hill.
Thank you, Sean. White, I'm going to do this without my glasses. I can do it. I can show you that I can read a little bit without my glasses. As White discussed the scrimmage, he mentioned a handful of players who stood out. The first name he mentioned, Blye Hill, 6'3", 185-pound corner. Played last season at St. Francis, which is a college.
He's from the DMV.
He's from Baltimore.
DC, Baltimore.
A place that's very special to you because of The Wire.
Yes.
You love that show in Baltimore.
We had some old rivals Baltimore. You don't want to get lost in Baltimore.
No. So there's he said that Tony White said Hill was noticeable in that he had 3 or 4 chances on the perimeter in one-on-one situations to make plays and made them. It's a good sign. It's a great sign because it's a good receiver core. And if Hill's out there making plays against these receivers, it's a good sign.
And if this one works out, you have to really tip your hat to the evaluation of Nebraska, because this is a guy that really didn't have much. I mean, he went in the portal and he played FCS football, and he was a limited guy on film. Didn't have a lot of film. That's why I was hesitant to just jump on Blye Hill right away, because I knew he had 3 years of eligibility still to play football. Yeah. And if he works out and develops, I mean, it's a real testament to this staff. And you know, it wasn't like everybody in the world was on Blye Hill.
Sean, you're not wrong yet either. He hasn't done anything in a game.
No.
So, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong.
We have a steak dinner bet on Blye Hill, right? Which, I mean, I buy you about 4 or 5 a year. So
you weren't obnoxious about it. You just said he was a developmental player. And I was like, and it caught me off guard. Like, oh, they brought in, usually you don't go into the portal for developmental guys, although Rule will do that. He'll do that.
Like a Jacob Hood.
Yeah. So he'll do that. Yeah. Rule will do that. Now, but that's a great point. I mean, they are not afraid, and we've heard this from national analysts. We heard this from Steve Wiltfong, that they're not afraid. Nebraska's staff is not afraid to be first on a guy. You know, it's sort of
Malachi Goodman.
Yeah. It's sort of risky to do that. You put yourself out there. And now look at Blye Hill. We can say right now he's challenging for that starting corner spot
opposite of Tommy Hill.
Opposite Tommy Hill. You know what I like? Here's what I like, Sean. You know this about me too. I like a defense that has length. So you got Ty Robinson at 6'6" up front. You have Jamari Butler at 6'5" up front. You have Javin Wright at 6'5" on the second tier. You have Tommy Hill 6'1" at a corner. You have Blye Hill 6'3", makes the field, shortens up the field, makes the field look smaller. I mean, I love that.
Sean Singleton.
Oh yeah, 6'4". That length is great. I mean, I love that, and that's what a Big Ten team should look like. That's what a major college team should look like. I give Rule a lot of credit for that, Sean. That is by design. I mean, they're recruiting length.
Well, and you know, previous staffs have done that here too.
Not as much.
For us, they got caught up in body types.
They did, but they recruit those small receivers though.
But like on the lines, they almost, and it didn't work.
They did.
It didn't work out
not as well as you wanted,
because the guys didn't move very well.
Right. Yeah, it's not foolproof. I mean, but man, you look at the best teams and you're struck like by Michigan's just sheer length. You know?
Oh yeah, and that helps you recover if you get beat. Exactly. A couple extra inches makes a difference.
100%. That's exactly what it is. A lot of it, anyway.
All right. Before we take it to headline number 3, Husker Online headlines brought to you by nuts.com. And if you would have seen Steve Sipple before the show,
oh God,
I mean, it was like we had to delay the start of the show because Steve Sipple was getting into the nuts.com.
Because I was chewing.
And you're like, hold on. And chew. But
we could go on camera.
If you haven't tried nuts.com, we've got a great deal for a first-time Husker Online listener that's never ordered before. They're going to give you free shipping and a free gift by simply spending $29. You got to go to nuts.com/Husker as a first-time orderer, and they're going to give you a free gift and free shipping as long as you spend $29 on your first order of nuts.com. And we've had it in our office here since football season started. It's been great. I need to re-up as it's been Steve Sipple's lunch a lot of these post practices.
Yeah, we don't really, because of the schedule we work, we don't get like a traditional lunch. So I eat breakfast, and then by the time we get here at 1:30, I'm starved.
Just a bunch of bags of nuts.com.
I'm just shoving nuts in my mouth, basically.
Well, check it out. Nuts.com/Husker. Spend $29 as a new user to take advantage of this special with Husker Online to get the free shipping and the free gift. Thanks again to Nuts.com for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online show. Okay, headline number 3. Matt Rule's practice structure may be preparing an assistant to be Tony White's successor. And we heard this today, Sip. You talk about these coaches and the development they're getting too. by dividing things up into 3 teams,
Mhm.
well, there's 3 defensive coordinators.
Right. 3
And
offensive coordinators, 3 defensive coordinators.
so besides Rob Dvorak, who told us, Evan Cooper, would he be the other guy that's been calling?
Cooper would be calling plays. I think Tony White obviously would be too. You wonder about Terrence Knight, and I would think the main assistant coaches on defense would be getting opportunities. But Dvorak for sure is. We know that because he talked about it, and he talked about going through the process of calling wrong plays and then learning from that. And I asked him, "Are you game ready? Would you be ready to go?" And he said, "You know what? It's kind of one of those things where you don't really know till you try, right?" A guy like Rob Dvorak, who, by the way, I'm really struck by him. I think he's becoming. He seems like he's more comfortable around the media now. He's done a good job with that group. You'd have to say, I mean, they were the 11th ranked defense in the country, and that group was good last year.
His Bayer came out of nowhere.
Yep.
Javin Wright,
better,
played his best ball of his career.
Right.
John Bullock, they identified what he had and made him a pretty good linebacker.
Great point. Great point.
John Bullock's gonna be big.
Yeah, and then they got Vincent Shavers going out there, and they have some other guys. It's a pretty good room. And he talked about, I mean, I asked him, would you be ready? Are you game ready? Could you go out there and do it? And he said, you never really know till you try, but it's very possible that would, well, you know what? Matt Rule in the off season on one of those Husker Nightly shows said that if White were to move on, that his successor's likely on the staff. That's now, he didn't identify anybody, but I mean, it could be Cooper, I guess. Could be
Dvorak.
Could be Dvorak or Knight. And you'd think it would be one of the full-time assistants, one of the main core 10 guys.
Or maybe you'd have Coe.
He could have Coe too, yeah.
Like a passing game coordinator and but somebody's still got to call the plays. But yeah, calling plays like as an offensive coordinator too, that's a skill. Like it.
Oh yeah.
If you've never done it before, I'm told that it's way harder than you can even imagine.
I imagine that it's hard. I've thought about it a lot over 30 years. I mean, it's not. There's a lot of pressure. Now you're more subject to criticism, right, on a weekly basis because of the play calls.
Think about this. Tom Osborne called every play at Nebraska from 1969 to 1997.
Yeah, won 5 national championships.
And he played for like 8.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's why I'm always like, I was always taken aback over the years when people say Osborne doesn't need to be around all the time. Simple. Why do you always call Osborne and get his opinion?
That's just young people that don't really, they get annoyed when people talk about the past.
Yeah, I would say to young media members, if you're going to go down that road, you should probably stop and consider that you probably wouldn't even be bucking for a Nebraska football job if it wasn't for Tom Osborne. I mean, Tom Osborne set it all up for us, essentially. But his knowledge of football was ridiculous. I mean, he was maybe one of the best play callers in the history of the sport. Okay. 5 national championships, called plays for 5 national championship teams. You'd have to say he's one of the best play callers to ever do it. So why wouldn't you tap that?
And he evolved into what they started running. I mean, they were more of a pro style, and then they switched to an I formation. Then when Turner Gill came, they went to an option.
Yeah, and I forgive the younger people because they didn't see it. You saw it. I saw it. It was when you got in a groove, it was very evident when he got in a play calling groove. It was.
And he would put you to sleep with these short side options.
And you'd be going, "What are you doing?"
But there was a method. There was a method to the madness of what he was doing.
Yeah, there'd be grumbling in the stands, like, "What? Short side option? That's just wonderful." And yeah, he'd be doing some things just to set up things later down the road. And then you'd be going, "Okay, I get it. I
mean, he set up Miami with Ray Lewis and Warren Sapp with fullback traps to win a national championship.
Yeah, he knew it. I mean, come on, it's Osborne, and you know what? You know who leans on him? You know who respects him? Matt Rule. I mean,
he's evolved this practice structure to what Osborne did. I mean, you can't do it exactly the same way they did it, but he's tried to create a way that's similar.
Yeah, and he involves Osborne, and he talks about it.
And George Darlington.
And George and Frank. Frank comes by the practice. Matt Rule, one of the things I've really liked about the way he's approached this is he's full on embraced the past, and he's full on embraced these guys that made this place what it is. Rule just does a lot of good things, that I mean, are clearly well thought out. And here's the thing about Rule. He's 49. So he's probably in the middle of our ages, right? So he grew up at a time when Nebraska was really rolling, and he respects that. He respects college football and Nebraska's place in it.
And he was obviously played at Penn State. So
Yeah.
he understands. I mean, he played for a version of Nebraska himself.
Exactly.
So he understands what a legend is. He played for a legend.
Right. 100.
All right. Before we head into headline number 4, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by our newest sponsor, Heartland Red. It's Lincoln's quality deck builder. All the employees for Heartland Red were born and raised here in Lincoln. It's a great, they do PVC decks, both residential and commercial, small decks, large decks, pool decks, standalone decks, anything you want to get done, column wraps, privacy walls, underdecking, you name it. They have a local showroom as well with all available products and samples. Call them up. They work with all the top products, premium products. This is the time of year. You want to have parties, you want to host people. Your deck may not be in shape. They'll come over, get it fixed. They'll build you a brand new, pristine deck at Heartland Red. Give them a call or visit heartlandred.com or call them at 402-405-5755 to set up a bid. That's heartlandred.com at 402-405-5755. And better yet, tell them Steve Sipple sent you.
Yeah, those are serious decks that we're seeing on the screen. That's trained professionals.
That's not a backyard weekend warrior project right there.
That's not me and Sean trying to do something.
Oh, the discipline it would take to build a deck on your own, and people do it. But it's a lot of time and effort, and you want to get it done right.
Yeah, exactly.
You want your footings and everything done right. Heartland Red. Thank you again for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, headline number 4: the spring game. Spring games across the country, Sip, are taking on kind of different looks. By the way, Nebraska's spring game about a week ago was at 51,000 tickets sold. So Alabama drew 72, Ohio State drew 80. So Nebraska's probably going to have the third, fourth largest spring game. I don't know what Georgia drew at theirs, but they're going to be right there, kind of in that third, fourth poll position, which is still really remarkable. And they did raise the tickets for the spring game this year. It's $15 now to go, and then $25 for the club level.
And there's no freebies.
And there's no kids that are free, which I always wondered how they monitor that. It would be really, because when you checked out on the Huskers website, you could just say like kids.
Oh yeah.
So it's $5 for children to go, which I think is totally appropriate. I mean, just to kind of get a head count of things more accurately. But I would imagine the spring game here will get in the 60,000.
I mean, I think people are curious about the quarterback position. That's a lot of it. Let's face it. And last year, Rule let him play. I mean, he let the guys play a lot. Now, he did say, I don't mean to stymie ticket sales, but he did mention in a press conference, I believe it was last week, that it'll be more vanilla this year. He didn't expand. They said it'll be more vanilla. I don't know what that meant, but whatever. He'll have to turn him loose to a certain extent because he doesn't have to, but it's sort of his MO to do that. He likes his guys to play football.
And yeah, and you're seeing spring games everywhere kind of be different. Like Old Miss, Lane Kiffin, they had Joey Chestnut come in and they had a hot dog eating contest with the players.
Who's Joey Chestnut?
The world champion hot dog eater. I mean,
when did you say that?
Thank you,
babe
in the woods. Steve Sipple.
Joey Chestnut was at the Ole Miss.
And they had a tug of war and Taylor Swift music and
with sorority girls, a tug of war with sorority girls.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like Lane Kiffin's just kind of make a mockery of everything at this point while his team plays good football.
Meanwhile, in Athens, Georgia,
yes,
they went 1s-on-1s and 2s-on-2s the entire game. And Carson Beck, who's a finalist for the Heisman, threw 50 passes in their spring game.
Kirby doesn't mess around. They have those they call them Bloody Tuesdays in their practice where it's just all 1s versus 1s, 2s versus 2s, scrimmage, live, no breaks. They call them Bloody Tuesdays. It reminds me of the way Osborne used to do it. I can't even imagine. I mean, I've read about their practices, and it's astounding. But that's Kirby. That's the way he does it.
Well, and you look at their schedule. They open with Clemson, and they have road games at Tennessee, at Alabama, and at Ole Miss.
They open with Clemson
in Atlanta.
Oh, really?
So that's scheduled. I mean, they're playing, but in a 12-team playoff era, they can split those 4 games and get in now. I mean, they can go 10-2 and make it. So, but I mean, I heard this argument today. If you were Ohio State and Georgia are the clear favorites to win the national title right now. You know, and would you take those 2 teams or the field? And you know, in a new era of 12 teams, it's hard not to take one of those 2 teams because
you're right.
You know, in a 4-team playoff, you can get an upset maybe, but when you're playing 3 or 4 playoff games, it's going to be, you have to be built to win 3 or 4 in a row like that. And those teams appear built to do it right now.
They do. I mean, they are. I mean, they have the depth and the overall talent. I'm glad you brought up Georgia.
But Georgia plays at Texas. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I don't think they play at Tennessee. It's at Texas. Oh, even harder.
That's harder. So I'm glad you brought up Georgia because they really practice physically, as you laid out, and that's the way Rule does it. And Rule cites Georgia as an example of why Nebraska does what it does. It's always interesting, that conversation, because there's always that in the back of your mind, like, wow, Rule's tackling a lot. Man, he's having his guys play football. You hope nobody gets injured. But he says, first of all, when you're going full speed, there's less of a chance of a player getting injured. And the other part of it is he said, sure, we're going to get some guys injured, but the way you get better at football is by playing football. I love this. I mean, I really like that he's that transparent about it, and that's the way he chooses to go about it instead of being cautious. We've seen cautious here, Sean.
I mean, think about Frostons last year during fall camp. I called it, they did like a firefighter schedule. I mean, it was like 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off, all the way through August.
Yeah. And I don't know. Did Frost do much hitting? I think they did a little bit.
They didn't do a single stretch of 5 or 6 days in a row. They did 3 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off, all the way to kickoff. They took the pads off for the last damn near 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we thought we were watching like this physical offensive juggernaut Northwestern.
You just hit on something really critical that I forgot about. That they took the pads off for about 2 weeks before their opener in Ireland.
Yeah,
right?
A week before they left, and then they didn't wear them in Ireland. So they 2 weeks before the kickoff.
Yeah, and we watched that game, and I thought those running backs were like NFL running backs, and it turned out they weren't very good at all.
They went 1-11.
Yeah, they went 1-11, and they looked like beasts against Nebraska.
They were 0-11 in the United States, 1-0 in Ireland. God, Fitzgerald after that win. I mean, like they threw that huge party. Like, I mean, it was like you're like, here we go, another Pat Fitzgerald special.
Yeah, nope. Then what happened? The whole thing unraveled. But anyway, yeah, Sean, that's good. That's a good point. I don't think we're going to see that again. I don't think we're going to see Nebraska get muscled around too much in a setting like that. Nebraska still got to get better talent. They still got to get some dudes. They're pretty good, but they still needed some dudes. But I don't think they're going to get shoved around too much.
Well, Rule plays a lot of guys too.
He does.
And I think on defense, particularly in the depth that they're going to have, I think they're going to play a lot of receivers. I think they're going to play a lot of tight ends. I think they're going to play a lot of backs this year.
And in defense secondary, you have some guys up front. You have some guys
like on the O line. You can't play a lot of guys.
No, I don't. Yeah. We've had that debate around here, and Milt stuck with 5.
Yeah. He might have had a swing guard.
Yeah. Swing guard. You're right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Like this, there are people that are uneducated about this that thought that Milt Tenneper ran like 2 groups on a game. No,
he didn't. He did not.
They got up by 42 points,
and then he put some guys
and then those third and second stringers got a lot of reps.
Yeah, but he was a big advocate. Milt, I wrote stories about Milt was a big advocate of keeping those 5-6 guys rolling together because it builds chemistry. So yeah,
their play counts weren't very high back then either because they ran the ball a lot and they had big runs and scoring drives. So it wasn't like they were probably running 100 plays very often.
Right. But you're right. Rules, I mean, they like to use a lot of players. So, but like I say, the practice style is really appealing. It's chancy. I mean, if a guy goes down, a key guy goes down, people are going to question it. Get ready, Sean. If Raiola gets smacked in a practice, he's in a green jersey, but if he gets smacked in a practice and goes down, we're all going to, everybody's going to question it.
I mean, I think
are you
the
going
state
too
of
hard?
Nebraska can't touch Dylan. I mean, if he's in line buying a pretzel at the shopping mall, he's in a green jersey.
They should just wear green all the time. Like, hands off.
You're at
Hands off.
You're at Annie Ann's Pretzels in Seaman line. You can't touch it.
Touch him.
Don't touch him.
Yeah.
Like someone blows the whistle, stops the play. I mean, you can't even get near Dylan Raiola.
Is there an Auntie's at the mall?
I think there is.
Is there? That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Which mall?
Gateway.
At Gateway?
Yeah, in the middle.
Is there one?
Yeah.
Good to know. It's bad to know.
They always have one in O'Hare Airport.
Oh, God, they do. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sometimes I break down. Sometimes I have a serious breakdown.
Well, it's next to Nuts on Clark.
Ugh.
The popcorn place.
Yeah.
And that's my poison.
Yeah, you can have a serious breakdown.
We're going to be going through O'Hare a lot this
Yeah,
year.
and you're stressed out. And it's like, oh, that looks so good.
All right, let's close the show. Headline 5. I wanted to do odds and ends because there's a lot of things kind of we want to hit on, but not maybe dedicate a full headline to it. First off, Chucky Hepburn in the transfer portal. Major blow to Greg Gard, Wisconsin. It's notable here because Chucky's from Bellevue West, and I think naturally you're like, is Nebraska an option? Well, the Huskers just got a point guard in the portal, and they returned Aaron Eulis as well. So they're kind of stocked at point guard. Okay. This strikes me as there's something else brewing for Chucky Hepburn where he's going to get a lot of money to play his final year, maybe at Michigan State.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know I don't think he's put out any teams yet. It just happened today. Sean, it's really interesting. Nebraska situation. Yeah, they just got Raleigh Worcester from Utah. As you mentioned, Aaron Eulis. Does that preclude Chucky and coming here and bringing Fiddler with him?
Well,
Frankie Fiddler.
The reality is you're not going to get a sweetheart deal to get Chucky Hepburn.
The reality is Nebraska has the money to pay him.
They do. But
why are you shutting the door on this?
It doesn't seem like, I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it would go that. There's just something. Robin and I were talking about this. The Omaha kids, for some reason, Nebraska's had a hard time getting those guys here.
I would like to think Nebraska would have a shot in this, even with Worcester and Eulis in the fold. I'd like to think they could maybe still do it. Because if you got Hepburn and Frankie Fiddler, I will tell you this, Sean. If they get Hepburn and Fiddler, the first game will be sold out. I don't care if they're playing Azusa Pacific. I mean, it'll be sold out.
Do you know who's going to want a guy like Hepburn?
Am I wrong?
No, you're right. I mean, but he's going to get a lot of attention. Like,
sure he will.
I mean, I guarantee you, John Calipari's probably going to inquire.
Yeah.
Probably Kentucky. I mean,
I think so.
Like, these teams need players. Yeah. All of them do.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's like just this musical chairs of basketball. I mean, no one stays anywhere anymore.
But Chucky Hepburn he's not from 50 miles down the road from Fayetteville. He's from Bellevue, right down the road.
But if you get a big, huge check from Arkansas,
then Nebraska counters with a big, huge check.
Do they want him that bad, though?
That's a good question. I don't know. I would think so.
I mean, there's no doubt the dream I always had was like, how great would it be if Chucky Hepburn and Hunter Salas and all those guys played here together?
Right.
And I don't think these kids understand if they played for Nebraska and did well here in Nebraska, they'd be set for life in the state.
They would be.
I mean, guys that played on those early 90s teams are all around here still making a lot of money because of the name and what they gave to Nebraska. And I think some of those guys don't realize playing for Creighton's a big deal, but I think playing for the State College of Nebraska, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, these local kids. And Dave Hoppin said that once on an interview with us, that a lot of these kids don't really understand how big of a star they'd become if they played for Nebraska.
For the flagship school and won an NCAA tournament game or 2 or 3. Oh, my God. Yeah, they'd be set. Now, here's a question you could ask me. Does Fred already know that Hepburn wouldn't come to Nebraska, and that's why he went out and got Raleigh Worcester?
Fred probably had an idea, as my guess, that Hepburn was going in the portal.
did he figure that Hepburn's going somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because he went out and got a guy. I mean, Worcester's a point guard. I said on our show the other day, and I meant it, I think you could play him on the same court with a point guard, but he's a point guard. I mean, he's an assist man. He's had, Raleigh Worcester had double-digit assists in games. He averaged 5.5, I think, his last full season. 5.5 assists per game is a good number. So it just makes me wonder if Fred went out and got that guy because he knew that the Hepburn thing wasn't going to happen for Nebraska. Hepburn wasn't even in the portal, but you got to understand, Sean, and I think you do. Even if a guy's not in the portal, a lot of coaches will know that he's eventually going to be in the portal. You know?
The word travels.
And, so I just wonder if Fred had a total handle on this. I got to go get a guy. Chucky is going to go in the portal, but he's not going to be coming here. Or if it's, I'm Fred. Ooh, Chucky's in the portal. We got to try to go get him. We got to try to go get him. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's going to be.
I mean, if you're Fred, don't you try to go get him?
I think you have to at least give it a shot.
I would say so. I would. I mean, partially because of what I said.
Does Chucky have any ill will towards Nebraska fans? Because they've been hard on him when he comes here.
Yeah, they have.
But they should be hard. I mean, that's life.
Just kind of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just in-game stuff. It's not. I don't think it was hatred.
No.
So I doubt that's a factor. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it because of what I said. I'd love to see it because PBA would be just rocking from the very start next season. I mean, you just couldn't. You wouldn't be able to.
Oh, it's already going to be rocking.
Yeah, but add Fiddler and Hepburn. Oh.
They play in Hawaii over the Christmas time this year.
Ooh, Rob might have to go over there.
The Diamond Head class.
I might have to go.
You might have to go.
I might go with Rob. Back to Waikiki.
You can only wish. Yeah, it's in Honolulu.
I know.
All right. I want to move on odds and ends. Board of Regents Friday will have kind of its formality voting to add alcohol to Haymarket Park, which, kind of another stone that's been turned. I mean, we've seen alcohol now in Memorial Stadium for both the Garth Brooks Show and Volleyball Day in Nebraska. We've seen it at Pinnacle Bank Arena for men's and women's basketball the last 2 years. Now we'll see it at Haymarket Park starting this weekend for the final 12 home games of the regular season and any possible postseason play. But this is kind of common sense winning out here. Rob Dannon, Troy Dannon, the new athletic director for Nebraska. That was really one of the first things he did on the job. There was a squabble between Nebco and Trev Alberts and his team about the revenue splits on alcohol sales at Haymarket Park, because Haymarket Park, part of their agreement was they got all the concession revenue and Nebraska gets all the ticket revenue. Well, this is a new concession revenue, just like it was at Pinnacle Bank Arena. And they agreed on a 90-10 split there. So Nebraska, the 90-10 in this situation. And that's what Nebco proposed. Hey, let's do that here. And Trev Alberts and his crew, they were looking at more 50-50. They wanted 50-50.
Okay.
But the reality is we were talking about such a small amount of money. They were arguing over under $100,000 of money.
Under 100,000.
To for the beer and maybe not even 50, a very little amount of money. And Troy Dannon looked at it, I think, and just said, what are we doing here? And on top of that, why are we fighting with the Abel family?
Family, you ever hear of Abel Hall by any chance?
The largest dorm building in the state of Nebraska.
Right. Abel Hall, named after that family. Yeah. Why anger them?
And you're fighting over.
And you did anger them, by the way. Nebraska did anger.
Yeah.
That we know that. And that's not
hearsay.
Yeah. We're not getting on this microphone and saying that out of conjecture. They were angry.
Well, and the state's largest newspaper had a front page 1A story that made them look like the bad guys.
Right. Via a departed Trev Alberts
employee. Yeah. And so and they quickly got that cleaned up. So that will be interesting to see just
They cleaned it up all right.
How that all goes. And the money now, they're going to put it all towards ballpark renovations and improvements.
Needed. I mean, I know I sort of harp on that, but Haymarket Park has become a little bit, it's kind of outdated a little bit. It's a little, the word I'm looking for is, faded. Faded. Yeah, aged and faded, kind of like me.
It's
aged
like
and faded.
when you went to your friend's house in 04, it was
Yeah.
like such a great house.
Yeah.
And you
now
come
the
back
paneling's
over,
still there.
you go over in 2024 and it's like white oak, and
Yeah.
it looks like you're having dinner at Olive Garden in 2004.
Wow. Shots at White Oak and Olive Garden in one sentence, Sean. Man.
But you think about Jim Rose, our good friend and colleague from KFAB, former voice of the Huskers. He said, that deal, when they built Haymarket Park, it was a different Nebraska back then. They didn't have the money they have now. And it was a 3-way deal.
It was a beautiful park at that point.
The city of Lincoln kicked in 10. Nebraska kicked in 10 million. They needed another person, and that was the Abel family.
Mm-hmm.
So without that 10 million, that doesn't happen. The park's not here.
Right.
They needed someone. So, now though, it's not a good deal for Nebraska. I mean, in a perfect world, Nebraska would like to probably have their own full control, but they split the facility.
Right.
So one of the things I know Nebraska would like is turf. They want turf in the ballpark.
They do,
but turf doesn't really work well for July and August baseball for the Salt Dogs.
No,
it's hot. It's just not. But for spring Big Ten baseball, turf would be a nice thing to have.
And they would. So this is a small item to most people, but not to me. It would get rid of the real dirt, as my like. I went to Iowa to cover a game.
It's like fake dirt.
Fake dirt. I was like, that's the most beautiful dirt I've ever seen. And someone in the press box said to me, that's not real dirt. That's painted. When I walked in, I thought, that is gorgeous dirt. It's not dirt. It's just painted on the turf. So whatever. Nebraska, it's not a decrepit stadium. It just needs some love. It's not decrepit, but it's no longer the jewel that it was 20 plus years ago.
No, I mean, it was the nicest ballpark at its time.
One of them. Yeah. I don't know about nicest, but it was nice.
Well, when it was first built.
Yeah, it's still nice enough. It's
still
nice enough.
To me, there's also a missing premium element to that ballpark. Like if they could create more of like a true premium experience with like a suite. The suites are there. There's not real nice suites.
Right.
Like a VIP type deal would really make that cool over there.
Yeah.
It costs money.
Yeah. And if they could somehow get into the top 10 nationally, that would help a lot too.
All right.
Nebraska.
And then I want to hit on this too. Caitlin Clark. It's just been wild to see the value of Caitlin Clark and how big she's been
in America, in this country, not just America, I suppose, just women's sports. Right?
She was on Saturday Night Live this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's like you remarked the other day. It's like Caitlin Clark has become a bigger sports figure in this country than Patrick Mahomes. Now, I don't know if you're right, but I don't know if you're wrong. So even if, she's in that realm. So the point is well taken. I don't know that she's bigger than Mahomes, but I don't know that she's not. And all you got to do is look at the television numbers for those Iowa games. They far surpass NBA playoff numbers. They're incredible.
The draft peaked out at over 3 million viewers.
So more people probably will watch. My guess will watch the WNBA draft than the NBA draft. Because a lot of it's just right there.
Well, and all the games that she's playing in, home and road, have sold out. Some of the teams that she's playing, because I guess in these WNBA cities, they play in a smaller arena sometimes. They're going to move these games.
There's at least one team that's already said they got to move. They have to move the arena when the Indiana franchise comes in. They have to go to a larger arena
because they're just leaving money on the table if they don't.
Right.
And, the thing is, Caitlin Clark would have gotten all this in college too. If she came back another year,
NIL,
and like her Nike deal is going to be over 10 million.
It's 8 figures. Yeah. 8 figures. Yeah. She's a phenomenon. She is.
Everybody has figured it out other than Greg Doyle, by the way.
Greg Doyle, the Indianapolis Star columnist, had a bad moment at the worst time.
At their opening press
At our
conference.
opening press conference for that team and the WNBA team. And I think people probably heard about it by now, right?
Yeah, just
made the heart symbol. I don't even want to.
But
you know what? I don't even want to replicate.
But she handled it like a pro.
She did. Yeah, she did. She does that. She does handle all this. You know what? Now that you mention it, she does handle the attention well. You know, like there's a lot of attention, Sean, and there's a lot. She's had to grow up fast now. All that attention. We're talking about her being maybe the premier sports figure in the U.S. There's a lot that goes with that.
I mean, think about this. She's not on the Olympic team yet.
Okay.
But you know she's going to be on the Olympic team.
Because
you know why? NBC.
She's good, though.
I mean, she's good, and she probably deserves to be on the.
Yeah.
But there's politics because, a lot of those older WNBA players are pretty territorial as we're learning.
Well, and they're pretty good, too.
And they're pretty good.
Yeah.
They're not showmen. They don't have the showmanship.
Not like her. I mean, they haven't captivated the country like her.
Did you ever see the movie Gladiator?
No.
Russell Crowe?
Did not.
So he becomes this, he's a trained fighter, and he's really good at it. And this guy's like, it's good to be good at fighting, but you also have to put on a show.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are good at basketball, but they don't put on a show. They don't have the charisma, the persona that sells. And she is different than a lot of the basketball players out there.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's hard to describe why, but yeah, she is. She's handled it very well. She's an American phenomenon. That's for whatever
NBC,
reason.
They pay billions of dollars for the Olympics. What's that driven by?
Ratings.
And who drives ratings?
People like her, the
Michael
athletes.
Phelps, Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
LeBron's playing in the Olympics this year, and so is Durant.
Yeah, that's great. But they're not as captivating as her.
So that will be even an interesting.
LeBron not as captivating as Caitlin Clark right now.
Like that will be an interesting test as well to kind of see what the USA women's basketball games will do.
Yep.
Assuming she's on the team versus the men's.
Yep. She's got to make the team, right?
Like I said, I think she'll get on there.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to just portray her as this phenomenon because she's got charisma. She can play. I mean, she's an incredible player. Her numbers speak for themselves. Well, she's the all-time leading scorer in
40-foot shots like that she makes. Like you don't just stop making those. Like she'll make those shots.
I think so. But that's again, there's pressure on her. There's real pressure that she has to deal with, and that is moving her game to the next level with all the eyes on her. She seems to handle that really well, but that's not. I mean, she still has to train. She still has to go through all that she's gone through to get here, to get where she's at. Yet with all this money and all this attention, it's amazing, really.
And you think about it like this: like how many times in the last 20 years on a Saturday and Sunday on your couch did you say, "I'm going to watch some WNBA"?
Never.
How many times are you going to say that now in the next few weeks?
Yeah, you're going to have to.
You're going to do it a lot.
Yeah,
so
you're going to feel compelled as a sports fan.
It reminds me of back in the 90s when the NBA was in its glory years. And you'd come home from church on Sunday or Saturday, and you would tune in to NBA.
That was the 80s too.
All day. You'd watch it.
80s and 90s.
And you knew who every player was on every team.
Yeah, you did.
And you were into it.
Yeah, you felt compelled. I mean, you didn't even feel compelled. You just wanted to do it. I mean, you felt compelled because it was incredible TV. It was incredible TV.
And you'd watch, like, on Saturday mornings, they had a show called NBA Inside Stuff with Ahmad Rashad.
Yeah.
And I'd watch it every Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I never missed it.
I can't say I did that.
You're a little older than me.
Yeah. But I remember the show. Now, the NBA now, I don't feel as I'm interested because my grandson Alex is very interested. So I stay interested, but it's not. I don't like to say this, and I hope he's not watching. It's just not quite the same. Now he would take issue with that. He would say, "Why? What do you mean? It's the same. It's the exact."
I just think about like a Saturday when I grew up. You watch that show, then they would go into game coverage like at noon. The Phoenix Suns played like the Orlando Magic, and like Shaq pulled down the hoop. And I mean, the whole country was watching that kind of stuff back then.
It was pretty locked in.
Like,
You were pretty locked in.
Everybody knew about that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that would be the same now.
Well, then you go back to the 80s. It was the Showtime Lakers and the Celtics. It was incredible.
And
TV.
the Pistons.
It was, and the Bulls, and it got to be the Bulls, and it was incredible TV. Incredible. So yeah, we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, can she kind of recreate a smaller version of that?
Yeah,
will be
that's
interesting.
But that's a lot to think about.
All right, well, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
All right.
Oh yeah, by the way, Olive Garden breadsticks, Sean. I don't know. Those are ridiculous.
And the salad.
Yeah, that place is still. I'll tell you what. If you go over to that Gateway Mall on a Friday night and try to go to Olive Garden, good luck getting in. You won't get in.
Anytime. Lunch, too.
Yeah, so you can rip on the decor, but they're still getting it done.
You got one of three choices: Olive Garden breadsticks, Red Lobster biscuits,
Ooh,
or Texas Roadhouse rolls.
I'm taking the Texas Roadhouse rolls, but I am 100%. But those are three incredible options.
Yeah, the Red Lobster biscuits.
Yeah. Oh, I've had rough experiences with all three.
You almost have to tell the waiter at like Red Lobster, don't bring any more out than like a couple,
because it's over. You can, your appetite can be over in 5 minutes, and then you have a steak coming, and you just feel like an ass, basically.
So you're going Roadhouse.
Yeah, those that bread is ridiculous.
I'd probably go the Red Lobster.
Really? That would be 3 for me. Number 3 on that list. They're all good.
People are like, what the hell happened to the show? All right. Well, make sure
sign off.
You check us out, HuskerOnline.com. Full coverage throughout the weekend. There's baseball. There's spring practice coverage as well. Try us out. 2 months for $1. Promo code NU1 gets you 2 months for $1. That's the best special you're going to get. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan, signing off here for another edition of Husker Online Headlines.